Hello and welcome back to School Life. In our last video, we were able to create our users table and also create the front end for the user registration. So in this video, we're going to insert and register this user to the database using our backend. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to be doing that inside of the data folder. So we're going to create a new file. I'm going to call it register.php. Okay, so we're going to start with our PHP tags, and we're going to be importing our database. And how do we do that? We're going to use require, and our database file is located inside of controller. So currently we are inside data folder. So we're going to move a step out like this, and we're going to locate controller. Then we're going to locate the config.php file. We're going to say config.php like this. All right, so let's test this out on the browser. Okay, so let's I'm going to copy this because I don't want to type too much. So we go to, okay, let's test it out here. So currently we have blog. We're going to add data / so want to open this file we have here, this register.php, to see if truly our file is working fine. So we have blog data controller. So we don't need controller, sorry. We just need blog data and register because that is where it is located. Blog folder, the data folder, and the register file. That's what we're looking for. So we visit this page and you see it says connected successfully. That is to show we have successfully imported this file, this config.php, inside of our register.php. So let's go ahead and start working on our back end. So the first thing we need to do is accept this data that are coming in from the front end. Okay, so the first name, the last name, the email, and the password. So how do we do that? So we're going to be creating variables for that. We're going to say first name, and we're going to be using the post super global variable because our method here says post. Okay, so we're going to say post, and the first thing we're getting is the post. We're using this exact name attribute value. So we use name, first name. Then we're going to copy and duplicate this. We need them 4 times. So the next one we have there is the last name. You must use the exact value here for it to work. So last name. So inside of this post index, you must use the exact name, but outside here you can use any name you want, but I'm going to be using the same thing so that we won't get confused. All right, email, and we just call this email too. Then the last we're going to be using is the password. So we'll set the password. All right, so the next we're going to be inserting our data into the database. And how do we do that? So we're going to start by storing our database, our prepare statements, okay, inside a variable. All right, so how do we do that? We're going to say we're going to use our connection file, which is here. So it says con. This is our connection variable. So inside of here, we're going to say con and put in the arrow, and we're going to say prepare. All right, and start our SQL statement. So we're going to say insert into, then we'll say users because that's our table name right here. So the table is users. Then we'll go back, insert into users. What do we want to insert? So we're going to call the tables we want to insert into, sorry, the columns. All right, so these are the columns we want to insert into: first name, last name, email, and password. All right, so row comes in by default because we set the value to be users by default. So this is row column, and we'll set the default should be user. So we don't need to specify any value for it. So we'll go with first name, comma, last name, comma, email, customer, then finally we'll call password like this. Okay, so the next we're going to insert is the values we want to use. So we're going to be binding these values. And how do we do that? We're going to say like this. So we're going to bind first name. So the same values, we're going to bind them. So let me just copy and paste them here. Then all we need to do is just to add the column before it. So bind this, and this is for security purpose. That's why we're binding them. So the next we're going to do, we're going to use this, and this is where we actually bind the values. So we'll do this, we'll say bind param, and we're binding one after the other. So we'll bind first name, then we'll insert the value we want to bind. So this is the variable coming from the top like this. Okay, and that is how we bind. The next thing we do, we just duplicate them, continue them 4 places. The next thing we're binding is the last name. So then we'll bind the email. Then for the password, we're going to be hashing our password to make it secure. So we're going to create a new variable. We're going to call it secure password like this. So call it. We're going to be using a PHP function called password hash. So just type password hash like this, and it takes in 2 arguments. One is the string you want to hash, and this default parameter password default. Yeah. So this is the string we want to hash. So the value that is coming in from this index which the user submitted, we store it inside this variable, and we're going to be making it available here. All right. So instead of using this directly, which is the raw password, we're going to be using this, which is the hashed password. So we paste it here, and that is that. So finally, we're going to be executing our statement. So we're going to say, we're going to write an if condition. We're going to say if statement, if the statement is executed successfully, then, so it's a function, the execute is a function. Then we're going to run something, but else this should run. Okay, so what do we want to do? First of all, let's start our session at the top, because we want to set a session. So at the top, we're going to say session start like this. Okay, so let's set a session. So we're going to do this. So if it is executed successfully, let's set a session. So we're going to be setting 2 sessions. Number 1 is the session type. Okay, so we're going to say type. We're going to say type is success. So that is user has been researched successfully. And the next one we're going to say is message. Okay, what message you want to give as feedback to the users. So we're going to say your registration was, sorry, that should be inside, was successful. All right, so this is what we want to save here. Then we want to redirect. For now, we're going to be redirecting the user back to the registration page until we are done with what we are doing. Okay, so else we're going to say danger. So the type is going to be danger. I'll explain why. Let's say registration field. So we'll do this registration field. All right. Then for now, let's just send the user back to the index.php. So we'll say location index inset.php. All right, so that is nice. Okay, so let's go ahead and test this out. So, but before we test that out, okay, let's test this out without the header and see if users are being inserted successfully. But before then, let's debug and see if there's any error. So currently we've not binded our password, so let's bind the password. All right, so let's test this out and see if the user is going to be inserted to our database successfully, or if there's an error somewhere. So I'll just refresh this page. All right, and I'm going to enter a name, and I'll say Paul. Now put this as the surname as James, and I'll go ahead and use this email, and I'll just set the password to 12345. And this will not work because, let's see if it's going to work. Okay, so it says unexpected variable statement on line 15. So let's see why that is happening. Okay, do you know why? That is because on line 12 we did not end our line of code. Okay, so let's end it there and let's refresh. And it says unexpected statement on line 17. Let's know why that's happening. And that is because on line 15 we didn't end our line of code. All right, so this is line 17, this is line 16. So let's refresh. And it's telling us there's an error with our SQL. So let's know why that is happening. Okay, so our SQL, we have users, first name, last name, password. Okay, yeah, so let's try. I think it's because there's no column, there's no brackets wrapping these guys. Oh, my bad. So you need to wrap all of your columns inside a bracket. So refresh and this should solve it. Yeah, so let's check our database and see. Correct, our users are being inserted successfully, and you see our password is being hashed, and the role of the user is user by default, and created ad is giving us the date. So quickly, let's fix in our session message on the front end. Okay, so we're just going to do this, and on the front end, which is index.php, we're going to start our session at the top. So use our PHP tag. I will say session start, and I'll just copy this because I'm going to use the PHP tag down. So inside of the form, we're going to be using we're going to create a div. Okay, before the div, let's create this. So we're going to write an if statement. So we're going to say if it sets session. Okay, so if this session is set, this is the session type, session variable type. If it sets, we want this div to display only when the session is set. So we're going to do this. All right, so we're going to start that div and like this. So the div is going to hold something for us. We're going to say class alert, then alert, alert, then we're going to call the type of alert we want to use. So that's where our PHP comes in. We're going to say echo the alert type that we have, which is this session variable. So if it's success, is it danger? All right, so let's do that. Then we're going to echo the session message as well. So we want to let the user know, okay, this is the message that the system is giving you. So this is the session message. So we're going to use that. Let's change that. Then down here, we're going to say, we're going to unset the session. So we want it to disappear once after the user has refreshed the page. So we're going to say on set session type. All right. So this is it. So let me put this in one line so it looks good, kind of. All right. So if our user is registered successfully, it's going to come out with session type success and the message your registration was successful. Else it's going to come out with the session type danger registration failed. Okay, so let's test that out. So I'm going to refresh. So this is showing connection successful because inside of our config.php it has been echoed out. So I'm going to take it out. We don't want to need that. So let's refresh and see. So currently it's taking us to data index.php, and that is because we are just redirecting to index.php. What we are supposed to do, go back one step backwards to take us out of this folder and bring us to index.php. All right, so let's go back to our index.php and let's refresh this page. So the session is set. That's why it's giving us your registration was successful. Once we refresh, it goes off. So let's register a new user, and let's call that user Godwin. Let's call the surname James, and let's set an email. Godwin. Let's say test user at schoollife.com. We'll set the password to 12345 and let's register. So it says your registration was successful. All right, so I misspelled the Godwin. So it was supposed to be Godwin. Yeah. All right, so you see our registration page is working successfully. So one more thing I want us to do is to validate the user. Okay, so let's just make it inside of this video, right? So let's validate user. What do I mean by validating? We don't want two users to have the same email address. So we're going to do this. We're going to write a select statement. And how do we do that? We're going to say so we're going to say a variable. Sorry. So let's call it v statement like this, and let's go ahead and write our SQL. We want to say con prepare and we'll do this. So we're going to say select. I want to select email from users where email is equal to email. That is all. Then I'm just going to copy this and let's bind this together. So we're binding with the same. Okay, so we're going to bind where email is equal to email. Then we're going to do one more thing. We're going to say v statement. So let's just say user as a variable. Then we'll say v statement. So let's fetch. We're going to use the fetch function. And we're going to do this. We'll say if user, that is, if that user exists, if there's a user that has, if the user with this email that is coming in from here that exists in this table user, so we want to send a message back to the user that user already exists. So we're going to just set a session message and redirect. Okay, so we set a session message which is going to be of type danger. So we're going to set that. We'll say okay. So sorry, email already exists. All right. So take the user back to index.php, and we're going to end the script there. So we're going to use the exit function to end the script. So that's what we've done. So we just say, okay, select email. That's this email that is coming from users, where email equals to the email that the user is trying to register with. Then fetch. If that user exists, then this block of code is going to run, and it's going to redirect the user and end. That means this block of code from 33 downward is not going to run. But if the user does not exist, this block of code from 33 downward is going to run. So let's test it out. So we'll go to our database. We'll just copy. You see, there are two users with the same email. So we'll copy one of this email and try to register with it again. So go to the registration page, and let's just put a random name because the registration is not, we're not going to make it to be successful. So we use the same email, just use a random password still. So when we try to do this, it's telling us registration successful. Let's fix that. So select email from users, where email is equal to email. So why is it going through? So let's debug. All right. All right, so let's check. All right. So let's try it one more time. Let's see if our user is fetching. So how do we do that? Print R. Let's print out this user and see what is happening. Or before then, let's take out this header location. So let's take out the header location and see what data is coming out, or what error is going to be throwing up. Let's see. Okay, so it's not throwing up any error. All right. So let's see if the user is being fetched for us. Let's refresh, print R. So it's not giving us any user currently. So select email from user, where email equals email. All right. Oh, my bad. Okay, so the issue is we need to execute the statement first. So we just copy this. We didn't execute the statement that we're fetching. So execute. Yeah, so this is the practical scenario of what you're going to be facing once you're writing your code. So there's no magic here. So you're bound to make mistakes and get errors too. So I'm sure it's going to work now. So let me fix everything. All right, so I'm going to take out the comments, and yeah, by God's grace, it should work. So I'll just refresh this page because this says unexpected variable user adds 18. So we didn't end that line of code. Yeah. So it's telling us, sorry, email already exists. Okay. So let's try it one more time. We're registering with CBT SQLite, which already exists. So try it one more time. So it's telling us email, sorry, email already exists. But if we are registering a new user with a different email address, so let's say Paul at live.com, and we'll give the password 123, and we'll register. It tells us your registration was successful. All right, so this is where we're going to stop for this video, and I know it's pretty much long now. So we are done with registration and validating users. So in the next video, we're going to log in users. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.